Hi, Smirconishers. Welcome back to smirconish.com. This is the weekly editor's report. And as you know, I'm your editor, Gili. So as I do every week, I'm going to highlight some of the best critical thinking original content available this week at smirconish.com. So let's get right into it. First up, we have a piece by Glenn Sachs, who is a teacher in LA, and he writes a piece called Teachers Want to Be Back in the Classroom Safely, where he discusses how the return to schools is really important for students and teachers alike and what needs to be done for it to happen safely. Then we have Rob Morheim with a piece called The Real Regis Philbin and His Gift to the World, where he discusses the sad passing of Regis Philbin and what impact he left on the TV and media industry as a whole. So check that piece out. Next, we have Keith Williams with a piece called Celebrating 30 Years of the ADA, where he discusses how the ADA changed his life as a disabled man and how he was there 30 years ago when President Bush, Papa Bush, signed that bill into law. Our next piece is by Kirk Effinger, who wrote a piece called As California Goes, where he discusses how a lot of national political trends start in California and how they end up becoming national trends. Then we have Casey Claytor, who wrote an essay called Resolving the Racial Divide and Racism, where she discusses raising awareness, especially for white people, on racism and on biases and implicit biases, and how that awareness could create a lot of actual action, positive change in our communities against racism. Then we have Jerry Traylor with a piece called The Most Important Public Health Study Nobody Has Ever Heard of, where he discusses how the first few years of childhood could really determine the personality of a human being and how it is important for parents and society alike to perfect those few years of care for our younger generations. Next, we have Jeremy McDonald with a piece called Mitigating COVID-19, A Better Path Forward, where he discusses the air filtration systems of different buildings and how it is such a big concern for the coming winter and even the summer during the coronavirus season and as the global pandemic continues to live with us. Then we have Timothy Fallon with a piece called He's Not Tan, but He's Rested and Ready, discussing Biden and his run-up to the election and what he needs to be doing and what he is doing to get elected. Then we have Nick Espinosa with a piece called America's Adversaries Care More About U.S. Election Security Than We Do, discussing the digital security issues and the national security issues that are going to happen and need to be cared for during this election, especially when it comes to the ballot and mail-in voting and anything that has to do with voting. Then we have Sean Young with a piece called Trump Traps Himself on Biden, which is a really interesting take, actually, of how Trump is lowering the bar for Biden so much that it doesn't even matter what he'll do, Biden will be better than the expectations that Trump sets for him. Then we have Rachel Robin with a piece called Anti-Semitism, Anti-Zionism, and the BDS Movement, the line between free speech and discrimination, where she really takes a deep dive into all the things that are happening right now online with discrimination, especially with anti-Semitism, and she really defines the line between what's free speech, what's allowed, and what's discriminatory speech. Lastly, we have Jay Paul with a piece called Why Kamala Harris Should Be the Next VP, discussing the long-awaited VP pick for the Biden ticket, which will come out in the next week. So we wanted to make sure we published that before he actually makes the announcement. So tune in next week for, I'm sure, a bunch of discussion on that. If you have any ideas for an essay, please submit them to me at editor@smirconish.com. We would love to work with you. And as always, keep up with CNN Smirconish, which is on tomorrow morning at 9. And as always, 9 a.m. to noon every weekday on SiriusXM on the Michael Smirconish program. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.